Welcome to my video on the different dream interpretations of certain people showing up in your dream. And so I'm going to go over those different possibilities of what it means when people show up in your dreams, whether you know them in real life or not, whether they're living or not. And this, video is going to encompass all kinds of different interactions of, whether you're projecting different traits or whether you're communicating with that person in the astral, because it's definitely possible. This isn't a totally comprehensive list of possibilities. I mean, of course, there's going to be further dream meanings out there that I didn't touch on, but I feel like this is a pretty good list. If you do feel like I'm missing anything and want to add another possible dream interpretation, you're welcome to do so below in the comments. The first, most general, undefined way that a person can show up in your dream is where they don't have a clear identity and you don't really see their face very vividly, and maybe they don't have any super defining traits other than the role that they play in your dream, whether that's just like a generic friend role or if there's someone that's chasing you, if they're like an enemy. I mean, that's a common dream theme that tends to come up. So in that case, I would say analyzing them isn't really all that important unless it comes down to maybe, again, anything specific that came up for that person. But in that case, your brain was really just trying to conjure up the vague feeling of friendship in your life, of having allyship or support in the dream, or again, to signify some kind of danger or threat. Again, that's which is represented by this person who is just sort of like an enemy that you don't really see too clearly in the dream. What does it mean when a person that you don't really interact with or think about, what does it mean when that person shows up in your dream? Well, most of the time they're embodying traits that you associate them with, and these different traits or things that they have going on for them may be prominent in your mind, or at least on a subconscious level at the time of your dreaming about them. So for example, like if you dream about someone successful and they're kind of like, say, I don't know, I'm just thinking of a random dream plot right now, and say they're running away from you or you're looking for where they were, and that was the whole point of the dream. Well, if that person in your mind, like say you don't really know them, but when you think of them, the first thing that you think of is, oh, that person has like their own business and they're really successful right now, and they have this family or the dream job that I want. Well, what's going on is that your brain is really thinking about those things on a subconscious level, and the fact that you're chasing after that person shows that you're finding those things to be a little bit elusive, or they're just showing you that that's what you're striving towards at that point. It really depends on what the plot is of the dream, what the nature of the interaction is. So for example, I've had a dream where, at the time I wasn't working, and I dreamed that I was like working in a little kind of office, and then there was someone there who pointed out to the boss, like, she's not really working that hard right now, or she's not is what she's doing right now, does that really even qualify as work? And that person who asked that is someone that I'm not very close friends with. But when I thought my impression of them at first, I said, well, that person seems a little bit chaotic to me, like they're not really that organized. So the fact that that was showing up in my dream as sort of like a moral compass, or sort of like someone who's doing even better than I am in the workplace, is to show me sort of like my internalized judgment of myself, maybe of like me not working, and showing that like, look, even this person who you view as maybe chaotic and disorganized is saying like, look, this girl is actually like needs to get her life together. So that's kind of one example of what it means when someone shows up, and you have to look at the nature of the encounter and how they compare to you in the dream, what the nature of the plot is, and again, most significantly, how you view them in real life. A lot of the time when we see someone in a dream, I feel like they do tend to represent qualities that we are looking for, seeking to embody in ourselves in a more conscious way, and the dream is seeking to show that to us so that we are more aware of what it is that we're striving toward, again, or what we're aspiring to be like in real life. Another reason that someone may have shown up in your dream, a person that you don't know that well, or that's from years ago, is that your subconscious is trying to bring up for your consideration something that person had to do with, maybe not them directly, but say like if the context in which you knew them. So this especially goes for like, oh my god, people from middle school, from high school, people that you knew from childhood. So if they show up, especially if it's someone that you weren't friends with even then, or that it's really like seems like someone random, it could just be, you know, your brain trying to show you the topic of school, of education, of you learning something in your life, and maybe feeling vulnerable, again depending on what you felt like in middle school or high school, or maybe even elementary school specifically. I mean, a lot of us really did feel maybe awkward growing up and in those years, and so them showing up, people from that period of our life showing up in the dream, is typically to bring back those feelings, or to show that you are echoing some of those different emotions right now in your life. Maybe a different grown-up role that you're in, a different adult situation or environment that is making you feel that way, but ultimately it likens you to the way that you were when you knew the person that showed up in your dream. And it could also have to do with maybe the city where you knew that person, if you were living maybe abroad, or just whatever you're going through in your life when you met that person. That could also be why that's coming up to the foreground right now when it comes to what you're dreaming and who shows up in your dreams. Okay, and now moving on to people that you actually do encounter in real life, maybe that you have closer relationships with. A lot of the time when they show up in the dream, it's really your subconscious showing you how you feel about that person. So say especially, or you know, it could be someone you don't even know that well either, but that you think about. So if that person shows up, it could have to do with your feelings about that person, again, if this is someone that you think about in waking life. So if you are, you know, seeing someone in the dream maybe that you have romantic feelings for, but they're kind of annoying you or doing something weird, or they're just doing something kind of sketch, then it shows that, you know, deep down, the way that you feel about this person is like, you know, even though you are attracted to them, there's something that is causing you some psychological unease and unrest. Maybe there is something. Maybe there's something that they do in real life that kind of bothers you, or that you find unsettling and that you don't really like. So a lot of the time it is about projection. I mean, this could also be about like maybe a family member, although family members can be really symbolic of different things. I should actually talk about family members after this, but I'm going to talk about the people that you know a little bit better than that and that may show up. Another example would be, say you have friends who are in the audience and you're about to go on stage and maybe deliver a speech. So this may be an instance of where in waking life you are maybe, I mean, depending on the feelings of the dream, say you were nervous in the dream. In real life, I would suggest that maybe you are feeling some trepidation, some nervousness, could be some worries or anxiety about having to present yourself in some way, especially maybe if you were about to deliver a speech of change or show some kind of transformation off to people, something that you invented. Let's say that you're a little bit nervous about presenting something that you've created in real life, maybe change for yourself in a personal way. And you're nervous to show those things to the people that you care about. So in this case, you know, with the stage is symbolic. It's about you presenting an aspect of yourself to the people that you love and care about, and that's them being in the audience. So again, depending on how you feel about them, that's typically going to resonate in the dream. So if you feel already like in the dream they're mocking you, or you know, you have like, I don't know, like maybe mentors in real life, if this is something that, you know, you're working on actually in a more professional level or an academic level, or, you know, just whatever level that you have a mentor for, it could show that you're worried about their judgment, and especially if you feel like they're judging in real life. Or if they're supportive in the dream, then that could show that your subconscious is trying to tell you that you actually don't have anything to worry about. And it could be your kind of like intuition or your inner wisdom showing you that, you know, like your emotions in real life, if you are nervous in real life, really don't have to remain that way. You could, you might have the opportunity to moderate those emotions and to really trust that people are going to respond well and hope for the best in that situation. Another great example of someone that is close to you is if you have living relatives, especially if they are your immediate family members. So I'm going to talk specifically about parents, maybe siblings, but for parents, if your mom or dad shows up, you know, depending on whatever your family structure is like, A lot of the time, the dad can represent the discipline aspect of your life. If your dad was a disciplinary figure for you, with the mother, that can show, a mothering influence of whether or not you feel nurtured in a particular way in your life at the moment where you're dreaming. So a lot of the time, especially with parents, they're very symbolic energies, especially with like the mother and the dad figure. But again, that could really depend on, your personal experiences, whether you have had both a mom or a dad or whatever your parents are like for you. But it's really up to you, again, to figure out what meaning suits your dream best and what you're going through at that moment of your real life. So it could be that you are thinking about those people literally, and it's a projection of actually how you feel about those people, or they could be symbolic and really just showing like, do I have discipline in my life right now? Am I being nurtured and taken care of in my life right now? So those are the different possibilities that especially mothers or fathers can have in the dream. I would say with siblings, that's kind of a possibility too, about whether you feel like there's kin in your life. That could go for close friends as well, with your cousins, if you have close cousins, or with your siblings showing up or really close friends showing up. That could just be more so to show the kind of support that you see for yourself in real life, and that kind of showing up in the dream just to show that general feeling of support and comfort, or having allies on your journey. Okay, so going off the work example, and this applying to maybe a time of your life that you've been through or something that you're thinking about. Say again, like, at the time when I was unemployed, I was dreaming about that person who was maybe disorganized, and they were saying like, look, shouldn't this girl be working? So another dream that I had in that time that had to do with, I'm assuming, employment or unemployment, was when I kept having dreams about old coworkers from the past. So generally that would show that my mind is thinking about the topic of work, because again, the thing that I associate with these people, especially if I wasn't very close to them, was, okay, I knew them at my job, so I'm thinking probably, what is my next job going to be like? And especially if it was a boss, that could show up too, even more obviously, just to show that you're thinking about that topic of work, of your career. Even if you're just thinking about your job right now, and if you're not close to that person, it's probably just you processing your work life in dream mode, and having that play out in your subconscious. Another example would be, say you had a really happy time in your childhood where you had a certain set of friends and maybe you never saw them again. If they're showing up again in a dream, especially if you're an adult and that time of your life was long gone, it could represent a form of nostalgia, or maybe something in you that feels aware that that element in your life is missing, that element of kind of like a golden era, maybe of care or of joy, if that was what you experienced at the time. And it could translate to you feeling like you need those elements in your life at the moment. I'm going to give another example that tends to come up just because, for any of you that have listened to my radio show / podcast, A Friend on the Line, you maybe heard a couple different dreams where someone has come up for one of my guests on the show. We're talking about their dream, and they've dreamed about someone random that they don't really think about, but it's someone that they've kind of felt an attraction to, or someone that they think is cute. Maybe they just follow them on Instagram, or they know them as an acquaintance, and sort of like that. So in that case, a lot of the time it's really just your brain thinking about what you want in terms of a romantic relationship. It could be you processing what you feel like is not present in your life, and especially even if you're already in a relationship, if you're dreaming of someone else, it could show that maybe there's some qualities that this person represents that you kind of are seeking out or looking for. Maybe you don't feel that those things are present in the relationship that you're currently in, or with the people that you're currently seeing, if you're dating multiple people. So hopefully that makes sense. I feel like that's a pretty common dream element, so I wanted to point out why those things typically tend to show up. It's really down to you to identify the specific ways that you find that person attractive. It could be, maybe it's their charisma, maybe it's sort of like their beauty or their grace or their charm, something like that. Maybe they're really funny and quirky, and that was kind of what you associated with them. And so it could come down to, again, you thinking about what you want in your love life, or again, it could boil down to that most general meaning where they're representing traits that you're looking for in yourself. Now I'm going to go into the more interesting possibilities maybe of what it means when a person shows up in your dream. I pretty much covered the more general, very common ways that people can show up as maybe projections of your psyche, of different things that you're seeking out, of topics that you're processing sort of on a more general level, when it comes to your subconscious, when it comes to the dream world, and sort of what is playing out in those realms, or in that realm, sorry, and in what is playing out in that realm, and in what is being played out in that realm. I mentioned that a lot of the time when you think about someone that you're close to, it's really your subconscious figuring out how you feel about that person, or just showing some different thing about them that you're working out on a subconscious level, and just your different emotions in regard to your relationship with them. Sometimes when a person shows up in a dream, though, it can feel a little bit different, and you know that you're not just sort of imagining the things happening, and it's not just about your emotions about that person, especially when it comes to information that you already know, and that showing up in the dream. So what I'm talking about is when information comes up in a dream that you don't know about that person, or it feels like they're sort of communicating with you. So say for example, like someone withdrew from you in real life and they show up in the dream maybe like a couple weeks later, a few months later, and they apologize to you and they sort of explain why. Sometimes when that happens, those kinds of interactions, it really is an instance of you picking up on something via just your connection to universal consciousness and that person's sort of messages being out there. Like it's sort of like there's not just communication on a real life level where that person can text you, or they can say on the phone, like otherwise if they call you, like, and say, oh, I'm sorry about that. But sometimes people can send messages sort of like psychically or telepathically, and then you can pick those messages up in the astral realm of dreams, especially because people tend to be a little bit more skeptical of having gut feelings about folks. So for me, I often get strong gut feelings about what people are feeling towards me, especially if I'm close to them. It really just depends. And again, it depends too if especially if I'm meant to know sort of what that person's feeling about me, to sort of I don't know, it just depends on what spirit shows me too, or what is relayed to me through spirit. But again, so for many people, they're not really tapping into their intuition like that in real life. Hopefully that changes. And again, that's why I'm posting videos like this, so that people do get a little bit more in tune with their intuition, especially starting with dreams, because dreams are so common. Pretty much everybody has had dreams and understands that, this is a phenomena that happens. And I want people to go a little bit deeper into that and see that there's actually some merit to these dreams. And there's actually, that these dreams are actually rich and really full of meaning, and they're full of symbolism, and in this case are actually potentially filled with messages from other folks and from their souls. So instances that can show up, again, if you're meeting someone and they're explaining something to you, or you're sensing something about that person in the dream, say maybe again, in that similar instance, maybe someone that has kind of pulled away from you, or you feel like you don't understand why you're not closer than you are, and maybe if you dream something where you see that they're sad or going through something in their life, and you can just sense that downcast sort of atmosphere around them, that kind of mood or feeling, and if you didn't know that in real life, when you wake up feeling like that was weird, like it feels like something felt true about the dream, and it didn't feel like you were just imagining it or thinking of possibilities of what they were going through, it is possible, again, that you're picking up on something. And again, especially if that person was communicating with you in the dream and they were explaining something to you, it could be that their soul was actually meeting yours in the astral, that you were conversing in a sense, while you both dreamt, because it could be that that person really did want you to know, and so you kind of had this meeting, so to speak, in the astral realm, and that resulted in you dreaming what you did and waking up knowing what you didn't know before. Now, I have heard that it's possible, or pretty typical for people who are in a relationship to have, simultaneous dreams with their partner, or have dreams that are really similar to their partner, maybe especially if you are sharing the same bed or what have you, and if you have a strong, especially psychic connection to that person in your life. So that is something that I have heard of happening, people even sharing the same dreams, or again, having similar dreams. So I've had this confirmed, or I've seen this where two people who were friends but were kind of disagreeing in real life, or one of them was having issues with the other person. They actually had some challenging dreams about that friend, and actually what happened was one morning that friend reached out and sort of was like, hey, like I've had these like weird dreams about you these past couple nights, and you know, they listed them out and they were like da 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 da, and they were also kind of like negative dreams, and while they weren't exactly the same, the dreams were like eerily similar in terms of their tone, in terms of the kind of interactions that the two people were having with each other. So that is a really strong case of, you know, people actually meeting in the astral, or sort of like exchanging messages back and forth, you know, via the subconscious, and then having that show up in dreams, so that people are kind of understanding, like, you know, that there's an issue in their relationship, or, you know, what have you. I do want to caution you all, though, maybe not to be so hasty to assume that you are picking up on messages. Again, it's definitely valid, but consider first whether you're actually processing how you feel about that person, because as I said, that is typically going to be the most common way, or the most usual explanation for why people show up in their dreams. But again, it is a definite thing that people dream about each other, and maybe they try to iron out rifts that are happening in real life, or maybe they're trying to show how much they care about each other, if that is also something that can't be resolved in real life as well. Because a lot of the time, you know, dreams and what happens on the subconscious level, it's things that we can't enact, it's things that we can't initiate or perform in real life. And so the dream world is sort of a way for those things to come out and play, and for you to sort of like be aware of yourself and what's going on a deeper level. So again, that can just sort of be in a personal way, where you're going through what you're just feeling privately, or it can be that you're going through these things in terms of a relationship, where you and that person that you're connected to in whatever way are expressing things to each other that you maybe haven't been able to say in real life, or maybe they've kind of been said, or you kind of feel something but it hasn't been expressed to the fullest. And again, a lot of the time our dreams will show those things on kind of a deeper level, and sort of show what is the nature of the rift, or sort of what are the causes of not necessarily the rift, it could be, you know, any number of things, but whatever is sort of going on between the two of you at that time. You might also be engaging in some form of energy exchange with that person, or, you know, communicating something non-verbally. It could be if they're not giving you a message when they communicate with you through your dreams, then it could be that you feel some sort of like healing from them, or some sort of form of love or friendship, something like that, and that they're transmitting that to you, or conveying that to you, again, through the dream world, the dream space. I do also suspect that some people may be dream buddies. I have a feeling that some people have a spiritual connection, even if they aren't maybe as close in real life, or if they don't discuss these topics in real life. It could be that they tend to go through dreams together, perhaps because they've agreed to help each other out in that spiritual way, and again, and through the dream world. I just have felt this. I feel like I have felt that with at least one person in my life, where it feels like they're sort of like my dream buddy, and they tend to show up a lot, mostly just like as an ally or someone I trust, and it feels like they are present so much, like they've been in my dreams so many times, that it feels like this is just sort of like a deeper kind of connection in a particular way, where we're probably helping each other out, and helping each other navigate different, you know, real life situations through the dream world on this sort of psychic level. Another instance where someone could be meeting you in the astral is if they have agreed to take on the role of dream work. So dream work happens when maybe certain souls, and this could be maybe on a subconscious level, they agree to help out other people through their dreams. So that could be where you're having a dream, and someone who maybe has sort of a teacher role for you in real life, they take up that role in the dream world too. Or maybe especially if this person is spiritual, and they guide people, especially in real life, and then they agree to do that in dreams as well. So I, you know, was part of a spiritual community where this definitely did come up and people talked about it, and I've had certain spiritual teachers show up in my dreams in a way where it felt like they could have been helping me out in the level of the dream world, of you know, interactions on the astral realm. So again, it really comes down to you discerning what their presence in your dream feels like. If it's just you thinking about the concept of spiritual leadership or education, and that person showing up because you view them as a mentor, or again, that person showing up to help you you. And again, they don't actually have to be a teacher. Maybe in real life, they don't even have to embody that literal role of spiritual teacher. They could be someone who is just kind and likes to help people, and then maybe they've showed up in dreams to help out folks, especially if they're close to them, or whatever. Just to give a specific example, this could be where maybe a soul is going through some unrest, or they're going through a tough spiritual lesson. It could be that that person dreams of someone who in the dream is sort of explaining things to them or showing them something key, something crucial to their learning the lesson successfully, maybe mastering the steps, and maybe showing them a crucial key in order for that person to master the lesson at hand. This could especially be if the soul is going through some kind of significant transition in their life, and that spills over into the subconscious and into the dream world, and then maybe someone who has some kind of connection to them will show up in order to help guide them through that process. I'm not really sure whether you can dream of people who aren't that close to you. From my experience, it's been someone that you at least know in some capacity, or even if you didn't talk to them all the time in real life, maybe you were related to that person, and so you've agreed to help that person who is alive in waking life and to help them in the dream. Those are kind of the only examples I can think of right now. But yeah, just giving a few that come to mind and that I hope clarify this possibility for those of you. But again, if you have questions about this or what it could mean, or maybe if you're having trouble decoding whether a certain interpretation applies to your scenario or not, feel free to leave me a comment. So continuing on that vein of spiritual guidance, sometimes you will have people show up, and they could even be recurring characters that you don't recognize. These are people that you don't know in real life, but that you see maybe even vividly in your dreams. And I would say that you should especially pay attention to this, again, like I said, if you've seen them in multiple dreams. So I would say that one of the reasons that this could be happening is that at least one of your spirit guides is probably showing up in your dream. For those of you that aren't familiar with spirit guides, basically each person has a team of spirits. Some of them are permanent and for life, some of them kind of go in and out, but they have you. Each of you has this team that helps you throughout your life, and that helps you especially with different struggles. So again, if there's particular challenge that you're going through in a certain period of your life, there could be maybe some guides passing through who are familiar with that challenge, who have come to help you through this little moment that you're going through. And so, either those guides or some of your more permanent guides might show up in your dream, and they may take on different forms, different appearances. They could be showing you what they actually look like, and then that might be why you recognize in the dream, or why you see them more vividly than, say, the more vague characters that I was talking about at the beginning of the video, people that you don't really, see their faces, but they're just generically, a friend or a foe to you. If I don't have a video on spirit guides already, I hope to make one in the future where I can break down the different members of your spirit guide team, the different roles that they have, because each person does have different roles that tend to come up among their spirit guide team, so that each of you can better understand who these spirits are and how to connect with them on a more conscious level. Now, another way that spirits can show up to communicate with you in a dream is, say, someone gave me the example of relatives who've passed away and they've shown up in their dream as younger versions of themselves. So I immediately recognized that what was going on was that these, spirits who had transitioned were showing up to communicate with their descendant. So when this happens, and if this happens to you, recognize that your ancestors are trying to communicate with you, and whatever they're showing you in the dream, they're trying to relay something to you. It's probably going to be wisdom, or maybe if they're more recently transitioned, then maybe they're trying to communicate things to you that they may not have said in real life, or they're going through their transition process and they're still in the period where they're communicating with their loved ones on Earth in a more active way, and they're still sort of like in that go-between period where they're kind of like acclimating themselves back into the spirit realm. So the reason that they show up as younger is because typically spirits, when they cross over, when they come back or when they make themselves visible to people who are incarnated, they want to see themselves in that younger version. Like not every soul wants to look as they did when they died, but typically a lot of souls will kind of revert back to maybe a form or an age that they liked when they were living, in order to, I don't know, just because that's what they like and that was their preference, and maybe especially if they want to be more recognizable to certain people in that way. when it comes to communicating with people who are still in the earthly realm. So now that I've mentioned a few different ways that relatives specifically can show up in the dream, let me just go over that again. So A, it could be you processing your feelings about those relatives, especially if they are incarnate. B, it could be they're symbolizing maybe a mother aspect of your life or a father aspect of your life. C, it could be you are communicating with that person in the dream, where maybe you're resolving some sort of like issue that you're both are facing in real life, or if you're communicating things to each other that maybe you can't say in real life or that you haven't expressed fully. And then 4, or did I say, is this D? I don't know if I was just saying numbers or letters. But lastly, especially if it's relatives who have passed over, your dreams could be an instance of your ancestors trying to work with you on the level of your dreams. So if you're aware of that, especially when it comes to the latter case, the last case that I mentioned, I would really recommend seeing what you can do to engage with your ancestors more fully, to see what it is that they're trying to relate to you, especially if they're trying to guide you in some way. So I would recommend maybe like guided meditation, maybe some journaling, especially just of the dreams. The dream in and of itself is going to likely impart a lot of wisdom for you to extrapolate when it comes down to symbols, or whatever your ancestor was telling you or doing in the dream. But especially if you want to do different practices in waking life, not real life, but just waking life, then again, guided meditation, journaling. There's just different practices that you can do to connect with your ancestors, especially depending on what your culture is or what you feel comfortable doing. I know some folks who are a little bit more ritualistic can maybe light a candle as an offering, or just as an homage to their relatives, and it can serve to invite those ancestors closer to you. There's going to be different offerings that you can put out, especially if you have an altar. It really depends on whatever is in your spiritual practice. These are things that you can easily look up online or in different books. I don't think that I have any resources to recommend offhand, but again, it really depends on what you feel called to, because for me personally, I don't really do that many rituals, or any really, at least as of this point in my life, and I'm really more of like, I don't know, I guess a seer, or I'm more clairvoyant. So whenever I connect with spirits, I tend to just ask them, and then I just feel things, or I sense things, and especially I see things, and that tends to be my main mode of communication. But it really just depends on you and what you feel comfortable with, and again, what you feel drawn to, whatever resonates most with you, and just whatever mode of intuition that you feel like comes to you most easily or most naturally. I hope that explanation on different dream meanings for, specific people showing up was helpful. If you have any questions, you're definitely welcome to leave them in the comments, and I will get back to you in case you're having any trouble clarifying different dream instances or understanding different possible scenarios that I covered in this video. This is hopefully the first of a dream series, or, different dream videos that I'm going to post. I do already have dream content up in the form of my existing radio show episodes for my radio show / podcast, Our Friend in the Line. I can link those here or in the description box, and you can find a few different episodes where I go in depth and I analyze different dreams for guests that come on the show, and especially in episode 3 I start off the episode by delineating how exactly to approach analyzing your dream. I do cover some of the things that I talked about here in terms of what different people can represent, but I go into further detail in terms of like place and environment, all those different kinds of things, and I will hopefully again talk more about those things over YouTube, and I'll create more videos. But for now, this is going to be the first one where I am talking about people showing up in your dreams. If you're interested in interpreting a dream and you feel like you need help with it, that's actually something that I offer as an intuitive service, where you're welcome to book an appointment with me, and we'll talk about your dream, and we'll talk about it maybe symbolically and analytically, but I will also tap into my intuition to relay any further messages about what's going on in your sort of waking life, and on what's translated into the dream that you haven't been able to extrapolate so far on your own. So again, if you have any questions or you'd like to book a reading, please let me know. And I am hoping that this video was helpful for those of you who watched it, and that you are a little bit better able to understand why people show up in your dreams.